Hi, my name is Martin Wood, and I've just completed a private pilot's license on helicopters down at Powered Flight in Pretoria. And I was asked to put together a short video of my life leading up to when I decided to do this course. So I was born in 1954, so I'm 67 years old now. And I started life, I had two professions. First, I started life in the Merchant Navy. I went to a Royal Navy Cadet Training School when I was 13, which was very young, but couldn't do that nowadays. But then I did my secondary education there. I got qualifications in maths and English navigation, seamanship, tying knots and things like that. And then at 16, I could have gone into the Royal Navy, but I decided to go into the Merchant Navy. So I joined a company called Ben Line, which is a cargo ship company trading from the UK to the Far East. My first trip was well over 6 months. So very difficult for a 16-year-old when the only communication was obviously by letters and things like that. But I sort of progressed up through the ranks, and in 1983 I got my Master Mariner's license and became more onto chemical tankers and got a little bit stereotyped on chemical tankers. But I always had a love for flying, and that was, and after trying to get a sponsorship with BA and the Royal Air Force, I self-sponsored myself in 1986. Such that I did all the correspondence course at sea for most of the ATPL or CPL exams at the time. And then when I came home on leave, then I did the practical side. I did my PPL on fixed wing and then an IMC, and then I could do an instructor's rating. And then when I was home on leave, I built up my hours until I got the 900 hours to do the CPL and also the instrument rating. And then I was very fortunate in 1989, when I was 35, I managed to get a job with Dan Air, which was a charter company out of Gatwick, London. And I flew the HS 748 and ultimately the BAC 111. Sadly though, they folded in 93. And then I had to go back to sea again into the Navy, and I joined the Georgian Shipping Company, which was part of the USSR at that time, or just coming out of the USSR at that time. And I had a command of a chemical tanker. That was quite difficult because all the crew were Russians or Ukrainians or Georgians and things like that. But I did that for 18 months. But needed to get back in the air again, so I self-financed myself with a 737 course and joined a company called GB Airways in 1995. I got promoted to captain in 1997 and became a training captain in 1998. They also sadly folded in 2006 and became EasyJet, but I left and I joined Air Mauritius and had a very pleasurable 7 years down in Mauritius, flying the Airbus 340. I had two children, but they were in the UK, so it's difficult to get back and see them. So I joined Turkish Airlines also on the 340, and lived in Istanbul for 3 years. That was an interesting experience, very much so. And then I came back home and managed to join Norwegian Airlines as a captain on the 787, flying out of Gatwick until I retired in the end of 2019, which was just before the pandemic crippled the aviation industry. So that was quite good timing. But retirement was, I felt, a bit too sedentary for me. So in the middle of 2020, I made a plan and decided to go down and do a helicopter course. Now, I'd have thought with 30 years of flying experience, it would be quite easy, but it's a different skill set. In flying big jets, it requires more of a managerial approach, and you become an operator of a very myriad of different systems and autopilots, and the integration between the navigational systems and the autopilot. So flying helicopters, vastly different. There's no navigational systems on a Robinson 22, there's no autopilot. So yeah, it was back to basics, and it was a very, very, very enjoyable experience. I remember my first solo cross-country flight that you had to navigate, you had to compensate for the winds, you had to keep a flight log, you had to maintain radio communications, and all the time you can't take your feet or your hands off the controls. So it was a challenge, especially to try and find an airport or an airfield, grass strip 50 miles away. But, you know, when I decided on going down to powered flight, with the advantages of the internet, I was able to look at all the different schools, and powered flight really stood out. It's not so much the cost aspect, which they were very, very competitive, I admit, but it was also the professionalism, because what's important is maintenance and the safety and the professionalism of a company when you're doing that sort of training. And I was down there for 2.5 months. I did the 50 hours required for PPL, and I came back with a fantastic experience. It was absolutely wonderful. I stayed at a place called Morgensen, which was a boutique bed and breakfast, which was owned by Martin and Herma Schellenkamp. And Herma, she was also a senior flight instructor there, so it was which she did most of my training. So it was all very much in-house, and it was wonderful. And if you're ever contemplating doing a private pilot's license, or indeed advancing on to do another commercial license, then I can't recommend them highly enough. So yeah, give it a go and enjoy it. Thank you.